What's going on, everybody? It's another episode of the Factory Tour. We're recording a little bit later this week, one day later than our usual slot, because poor Ben over here, he got a little sick on the day of. Normally record on Tuesdays. It was going to be Halloween, but we're back here. It's Wednesday night. We're still got a show for you that is loosely Halloween themed, and we are not going to pivot off of that. I already made the thumbnail. I already named the segments. So we're just going to pretend like this is Halloween part 2. Take your Christmas decorations down, turn off the Christmas music because it's still spooky season here. Ben, how are you feeling today?
I have a lovely cup of Earl Grey tea with some milk and honey next to me, and I'm ready to go. My sincerest apologies on the delay yesterday.
Oh, no.
I'm glad that we can be so honest with the people about the circumstances, but I'm ready for a good show for sure.
Apologies are unnecessary. You are a gentleman for coming on this show as often as you're asked to, and I couldn't imagine replacing you and bringing on some other guests. So we need you here. You are here. You're putting in the work. Your body may be weak, but your mind is strong, and we need your best work. So look, we're going to talk about some breakouts because in the recent weeks we've had some breakout players, mostly rookies. Talk about one non-rookie as well. Just kind of seeing where the dust settles, like how high can these guys move up in our rankings realistically? What should we be doing with them? And then we're going to turn our attention to some of the scariest assets to own in Dynasty. Maybe might want to keep a blanket nearby or something in case you need to cover your eyes, because these players can be kind of scary. And then maybe a little zombie themed segment as well. We're going to take a couple players and ask, are they going to come back from the dead or are they going to stay buried? Some guys that have maybe not lived up to expectations that are kind of falling deeper and deeper down the Dynasty rankings. So should be a fun time. We're going to kick things right off with the breakouts. Starting with the most shocking to me was the Will Levis game this past weekend. So I was not a Will Levis guy at all. I mean, I don't really know how to scout quarterbacks, to be honest with you, but everybody that I listened to was like, this guy's not it. He fell to the second round in the NFL draft, and that was like pretty much enough for me. I did not get him in any rookie drafts. Just one of those guys that was just never really in a range that I wanted to click on. So I don't have it. I didn't have any shares, and now I'm kind of reeling because he plays his first game. He throws 4 touchdowns. He really looks great. What are your thoughts on Will Levis, Ben? Like, were you interested in him at all, heading into the season, and where are you at on him now?
I was interested in Levis pretty much all off season. Like, you can go back and look at me and Drew, like our first episode together, I think was Levis versus Richardson comparison. And I've never been like as low on Levis as some people have been. I did have him in like the same tier as Hendon Hooker, behind the top 3 in my first pre-draft QB rankings, but eventually I separated the two because I do think that the tools that he has and just put on display last week are notable enough that he does have, a tangible ceiling in Dynasty. And then he literally lit the Falcons on fire last weekend. It was pretty insane. I'm sure you have seen all over Twitter, but some of the throws he made are throws that like 3 to 4 guys in the entire league can make. We're talking like across the field, across his body on a 50-yard post, and it's a perfect dot right over the shoulder in stride in the end zone. It's next level stuff. So I don't know. He looked the part of what most people thought he wasn't going to be. He proved all of the, if he can throw this in underwear, but he can't throw it in pads kind of vibe. Like that just proved to be totally incorrect. And honestly, it definitely brought a smile to my face because there were a lot of people who were really low on him for kind of no reason this offseason. So,
well, I was maybe one of those people. Look, his college stats are definitely not impressive, but that doesn't always tell the whole story. And we've seen plenty of quarterbacks come in the NFL that were not expected to succeed that did succeed. Like, it's just not anything like scouting wide receivers or running backs. It's so unique. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just all the mental aspects that go into playing the position, but we just tend to be wrong more often than we're right when it comes to quarterback prospects. So I wasn't into him, but I'm also very willing to change my tune very quickly. I'm kind of willing to be like, maybe we were totally wrong about him, after one game, and be pretty aggressive about kind of placing him into the rankings. So he was a like late first, early second round pick generally in rookie drafts. I think it's pretty safe to say that he's worth more than like a late first at this point. Is this somebody you would want to go out and try to acquire right now, or are you going to just like let other people deal with it?
I'm probably not offering, like, I have him valued, just like you said, probably around like a mid first to like a late first as far as 2024 picks goes. When you look at the 2024 class, the quarterbacks who are projected to go in that range are guys like Michael Penix and Bo Nix and like JJ McCarthy. And none of those guys really excite me more than Levis, honestly, especially having seen Levis do it at the NFL level. So I'd probably roll with him over most of those guys. So I'm probably not sending that out, but if another week passes and he looks good again, I'd feel fine sending out a mid first for him.
Gotcha. See, that's the tricky part for me is like, if he does this again, I'm not sure the mid first gets you there. Like,
Yeah.
I think because I think people are going to be quick to adjust to this. With rookie quarterbacks, there's just such a thirst for quality quarterback play in super flex leagues. Like most of the quarterbacks in the NFL suck. Kirk Cousins just got hurt. Like
They're
there's
playing on
just
prime time this week too.
Oh yeah, the Titans are. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's perfectly like it's very possible that he looks bad this week. They play the Steelers, like TJ Watt. He could struggle and maybe that opens up a buy window. I don't think that he's going to be very attainable in most spots if he has another great game. And the upside that is there, like if he does have a strong end of the season, he could be worth multiple firsts. I mean, he's not necessarily Anthony Richardson, but he is mobile and he has the tools. Like you said, he made those incredible throws. So I don't know. I'm very torn. I'm going to send out some offers, I think, this week and try to see if I can snag him for like a late first plus. But I would always err on the side of trying to send players rather than picks. Maybe the
That's
better
what I was
question
about to say too. Yeah.
is where does he fit into the quarterback landscape? Like, are there any specific quarterbacks that you could try to pivot into him? Like, what would you add to a Sam Howell to get Will Levis? Something like that.
I'd probably feel comfortable adding like a mid second to Howell, if not like an early second, maybe even to tier up to Levis. I think that Howell has looked bad enough that you should want to move off of him, but produced well enough that you should be able to get some sort of substantial value back for him. His, like you tweeted the other day that his he's like the QB8 or something like that with like almost no rushing production. And he's also looked bad doing it. Like he has not been, he's the most sacked quarterback in the league. He's holding onto the ball too long. He's turning the ball over. So I definitely feel comfortable tearing up or even like tearing down. If you have like a Deshaun Watson kind of guy, or if you could maybe flip like a Goff with a small plus for a Levis, I'd be happy to do that as well.
I think those are all good options. I already tried in every league where I have Deshaun Watson to trade down into Will Levis, and I was denied in all spots. But that doesn't necessarily mean that. I mean, I might have been asking for too big of a plus, or like there's just a lot of dynasty managers that are just like, I don't want Deshaun Watson. Like it's your results may vary, but I haven't had success with that type of a trade. But yeah, I think Goff. It's kind of crazy to imagine that he's like already ahead of him, but I mean, Goff's production is just, it's fine, but it's like kind of replaceable. You could go buy Baker Mayfield for half the price and get 95% of the production at this point. I think you swing for the fences with somebody like Levis who could actually rise in value, whereas Goff is just going to be kind of stagnant where he is. He's not getting better. He's not gain more job security. He's just kind of is what he is. So I think that's also reasonable. But I want some exposure to a guy like this where there's a lot of rocket ship potential, right? Like he's not necessarily Justin Herbert. He didn't go top 5, but people didn't like Justin Herbert as a prospect. There were a lot of people that just let him fall. Like I remember him going like 109, 110 rookie drafts, and I wasn't taking him. I wasn't a very serious dynasty analyst then, and I was kind of just following the group think on that one. And all of a sudden, this guy's literally the QB1 in dynasty for a stretch of time. So it could happen with Levis, not necessarily QB1 overall, but a lot of potential for value gains there. So I'm pretty interested in looking into it, trying to send out some offers. And he's probably going to start next year like unless he's egregiously bad for the rest of the season. Like if he shows anything, I don't really see how they're gonna just not roll with him.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I will note that he was playing with a pretty like remarkably clean pocket last Sunday. I like when you look at the tape, he pretty much has all day to throw, and he's able to shoulder fake and stuff like that in the pocket. And I don't know how long that's going to continue for, but we're not buying him expecting 4 touchdowns a game. We're buying him just because we saw what could be, and it's a pretty solid investment, like you said.
Absolutely. So we're fitting Will Levis in there somewhere in the zone above Goff, above Howell, obviously, above quarterbacks. Well, I guess there aren't a lot of quarterbacks. Would you rather have Justin Fields or Will Levis right now in Dynasty?
That's still Justin Fields for me, but it's definitely like closer than I would have ever thought it would be at any point this year.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's pretty close for me as well. Gun to my head, I think I'll still take Fields, but
Yeah.
it's really, really close, honestly. All right. Our next guy is a little bit less murky, pretty cut and dry for me. It's Jahmyr Gibbs. He finally did the thing that we wanted Jahmyr Gibbs to do, which is look absolutely freaking amazing at football and do it on prime time. I mean, this guy, he is as advertised. He's electric. I mean, he's so fast. He can do it on the ground. He can do it through the air. I mean, what do you have to say about Jahmyr Gibbs?
I'm literally a Raiders fan, and I had the best time of my life watching Jahmyr Gibbs tear us to shreds. Like, it was awesome. I couldn't stop smiling. I was on Twitter the whole game tweeting about how the Jahmyr victory laps are never going to stop, and how up I feel, even watching like the most embarrassing loss of my team's. I guess really not that. Don't have to go that far back to find a worse loss than that. But I digress. He looked absolutely insane. Like you said, he was as advertised. The speed, the explosiveness, the slipperiness at the line of scrimmage, especially on that touchdown run, you can see the hole that he bounced through, like almost wasn't there before he jumped through it. And he like predicted that it was going to develop, jumped through it, made another insanely quick jump cut, and then just exploded to the end zone. And we just saw stuff like that all night. He looked great as a pass catcher still. Obviously, he's a very natural receiver, and that's an aspect that we genuinely love about his game. And toting that kind of workload, I think he had over 30 touches and what was it, like 180 scrimmage yards. That was the knock on him that everybody's had, that his own team has had. And then he went out and absolutely put on a show against a defense that honestly isn't that bad. Like, the Raiders have been performing middle of the pack this year. Patrick Graham has done a good job. The linebackers are overperforming. The defensive line is solid. And he made them look like absolute fools. It was sick. It was awesome.
Yeah, and if your faith at all was wavering on Jahmyr Gibbs, I mean, this is what you need to see. He is a locked and loaded top 5 dynasty running back. I would argue pretty strongly for him as the dynasty RB3 right now. And look, it's not going to be like this when David Montgomery comes back. Like, it's not going to be this type of insanity. He's not going to get 30 touches a game. Frankly, he wouldn't get that even if David Montgomery was out for the season. It was just like a really wonky game script. But you can see the shades of Christian McCaffrey there that we were seeing, with his prospect profile. He can do this kind of stuff. It was a long time ago to remember Christian McCaffrey's rookie season, but he played with Jonathan Stewart, and he really didn't get that many carries that year. Alvin Kamara didn't get that many carries as a rookie. Like, what Gibbs is doing right now, even excluding this past game, but obviously it's a nice cherry on top, is perfectly in line with what those guys did as rookies. He wasn't as efficient in the receiving game for the first few weeks, but he's really ramping up now. He's making the big plays that we expected. It's absolutely wheels up for him. Even if, David Montgomery comes back and kind of slows things down for the rest of the year, even if David Montgomery comes back next season, I'm not going to have any issue projecting Gibbs to be a fantasy RB1 because his target share is just high enough to support him, even if he's only getting like 10 or 12 carries a game.
The other thing about Gibbs that seems kind of anecdotal, but like you said, comparing him to McCaffrey and Kamara, those guys are both in their 6th season in the NFL, and they're still producing as the top 2 running backs in PPR leagues. They've sustained their production, and in part of that is because they weren't getting such an insane workload their rookie year or their second year. I guess McCaffrey did get a pretty insane workload his second year, but there's a reason why teams aren't totally running their running backs into the ground anymore. It's because you want to stretch their dominance out over as long a period of time as you can. So I honestly don't even have a problem with Gibbs regressing back to like the 20 touch range per game going forward once Montgomery returns. And the fact of the matter is David Montgomery's under a 3-year contract. He will be back next year, and he'll probably be back the year after that. Lions love him. They love guys like him, and he will get touches. He will get touchdowns, and that's just a part of it. But that's not Jahmyr Gibbs is not the only elite dynasty running back to also deal with some kind of vulture in his backfield. Kamara had Taysom Hill during his whole run as like one of the top dynasty running backs. McCaffrey, like you said, and Mark Ingram. And McCaffrey's had guys like Jonathan Stewart and Elijah Mitchell and stuff like that throughout his career. So Jahmyr Gibbs is a top 3 dynasty running back. Don't overthink it. Allow yourself to have fun and just come hop on the wave. It's a good time.
Yeah, it is a good time. I think it's going to continue to be a good time. There's really no advice in terms of like trading for Jahmyr Gibbs. Like you're really not going to be able to.
Just do it if you can. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you can, then try, but like the time to buy him was when he was struggling. At this point, you just want to enjoy what you have. But don't sell him. Don't sell high, off of this performance. Like this isn't that kind of a moment. This is like, we're seeing what we needed to see. So that's really all that needs to be said. Just kind of a celebration of Jahmyr Gibbs there. Unrelated, yes. But in that Raiders game, oh my gosh, I wasn't watching most of it, and I went to bed at like halftime, but I went back and I saw those 2 missed touchdowns to Davante Adams, and I was so triggered. I mean,
I've been crying pretty much since Sunday night. I have not stopped until I saw the news this morning.
The news that Jimmy Garoppolo is being banished to the Shadow Realm.
And that McDaniels and Ziegler are banished.
Oh, yeah. And McDaniels is fired. Yeah.
This was my Christmas morning, Paul.
They're burning it all down.
I'm not getting another one. This was it.
Josh McDaniels is fired. Jimmy Garoppolo is benched. Aiden O'Connell is the starter. Hopefully that leads to more production for Davante Adams because, man, I absolutely drew the short straws on the aging elite wide receivers this offseason. Like I have Davante Adams and Cooper Kupp in so many leagues, and I have so much less Stephon Diggs and Tyreek Hill, and they were all going. I mean, Hill was a little higher, but they were all going in like the same range of startups, and that's just how it fell to me. So a little bit tilted about that.
Yeah. No, I feel that. I have Kupp in a league in a startup that happened this offseason, and I'm a contender in that league, and I took him one spot before Tyreek Hill, and I was literally like debating in my head for like the entire draft clock, like who I was going to take, and
that hurts.
Yeah, tilted is an understatement for sure.
Yeah. All right, our next breakout is not a rookie. It is Trey McBride, who just had like a 30-point game this past week, kind of just doing the thing that tight ends do sometimes where they just get like a million receptions. The thing that TJ Hawkinson does every week to get like 10 receptions for like 7 yards a catch or whatever and just rack up PPR points. But it was really good to see for him. He was obviously a highly touted prospect, didn't do anything as a rookie. He's been coming on a little bit this year, more so now that Ertz is on IR. What do you think about this McBride breakout? Like he's had some decent games this year already. This was really the first one that like really made you pay attention though. Do you think this is the kind of thing that could continue? Not like to this degree, but just in general.
I kind of do think so. I mean, he doesn't have the worst prospect profile. He had round 2 draft capital, I believe, and he was a solid college prospect. And obviously the opportunities there with Ertz heading to IR and Kyler hopefully coming back this or next week would be huge. He can start developing some rapport with him right away. But I don't know. I sort of am hesitant to like send out like a late first for him right now. If I could acquire him for like an early second, I'd be happy to do that. But it's tough to go off such a small sample size and buy in after just one game. But that's how you miss out on guys too. So maybe I'm wrong there. I don't know. If I was really down bad for like a young tight end on one of my teams, I'd feel fine sending a late first for him, honestly.
Okay, a late first. Yeah, I'm not quite there with him, like a late first range. Definitely would send like an early two. I'm not sure if that gets it done, but if not, I would rather buy like Michael Mayer or something. Um, I feel like a first is maybe a reach. Um, but I do think that he's going to continue to score some fantasy points. Josh Dobbs is out of the picture now, so we'll see. But I know Kyler Murray has liked his tight ends. So yeah, I mean, he's probably going to keep getting targets. He's not going to be. There's like different kinds of tight ends where it's like some of them are kind of they're productive, but it's like in a fraudulent way. Like Trey McBride is he's getting all these short targets. It's kind of like TJ Hawkinson, where it's like Hawkinson's just in this perfect position to produce, and it's not like he's an elite volume earner. He's not like an elite athlete. It's not like this explosive player. It's just he's the guy that's there, like not necessarily a check down, but kind of in that same kind of range. But it doesn't matter. Like the fantasy points count the same. So whether, I think Kyle Pitts is like an insanely talented elite player or not, somebody like Trey McBride is just going to rack up fantasy points doing what he does. So I don't know if it really matters, but the fact that he's kind of just a compiler does, I don't know, shy me away from investing like heavy capital in him.
I definitely get that. I think that there's maybe some ceiling there with him, but obviously not to the degree of the actual elite tight end prospects that we're usually chasing after. So I don't know. I've said this offseason that we were in need of an injection of some like mid-tier tight ends, and I think McBride is kind of just another one of those guys. Like you said, probably in the same tier as like a Michael Mayer for me, as like a Luke Musgrave, maybe Evan Ingram. I have kind of around those guys as like an older version that is producing right now, but I'd probably send about the same for him, probably a little bit less. I think Dallas Goedert is kind of slowly regressing to that tier as well, and there's nothing wrong with that. The tight end 8 to like 16 range has been like an absolute desert for the last 3, 4, 5 years, so I think it's fine to add a couple mid guys in there, and you can start those guys. There's nothing wrong with it.
He does have a 99th percentile college dominator, and he has an 85th percentile speed score, so it's not like he's a nothing athlete. So I mean, there's some stuff to be excited about. Doesn't have a lot of burst, but
and there's opportunity in that Arizona offense for sure, especially with Kyler coming back. Hopefully they can, they're not going to be an elite offense at any point this year, but if they start putting up more points on the board, McBride's going to find himself in the end zone more than enough. So
yeah, and you also have to think ahead. Like they're not going to keep Zach Ertz indefinitely. Like the dude is just completely washed. He can't stay healthy either. And what incentive do they have to like invest something else in the tight end position? Like nothing. Their second round pick last year is now looking like a hit. Like he's going to run more routes. He's already had like a crazy targets per out run. That'll probably come down as he gets a full-time role, but he's still going to probably get plenty of volume. So he's probably pretty stable. I don't think he's ever going to be a guy who's like a top 3 tight end over the course of a year, but he could definitely have some kind of Zach Ertz-esque seasons. I don't think that's out of the picture at all. Who I really miss though is Greg Dulcich.
Dude, it makes me so sad.
Dulcich season so much. Like I just wish.
Actually, he's genuinely my most owned tight end in Dynasty.
Yeah, it's really sad.
We're just like suffering in silence.
We're so down bad, but eventually he'll be back. He can't just indefinitely suffer hamstring injuries. He's going to do some things on the field someday.
The peripherals will manifest themselves eventually. It's okay.
Yeah, that's what I've been telling myself about Kyle Pitts for years now, but it's fine. It's fine.
We're not wrong about it, though. That's the
thing. Can't be wrong until he retires. So
exactly.
We're
just talking about upside. It's always been theoretical. So if it never happens, we were never wrong. We just got unlucky.
Never wrong, just unlucky. Hey, the process was right.
Yes,
the process was right. That's what we can tell ourselves. Yes. All right, so we need to keep this actionable, and I feel like it was a little bit all over the place. You said you could possibly send up to a late first in a tight end premium situation, kind of have him in a tier with Musgrave, Mayer, Ingram. I think that makes sense. I feel about the same, but I think I'm just a little bit lower on that tier in general. I could see myself sending like maybe a late first worth of value, but I definitely couldn't see myself sending any physical, actual first round pick
Yeah.
for Trey McBride. So that's kind of where I'm at. If I see another couple games, maybe I'll change my tune. But I think he's going to be more of like like I said, a compiler type of guy. Imagine like if Cole Kmet was good, like he could be like that.
Pretty
Kind of.
much.
So
Yeah. Agreed.
yeah. All right, one more guy, one more breakout. His big breakout was really 2 weeks ago, but I haven't talked about him much on the show. Jordan Addison, just kind of, I don't know, just comes right in and immediately is like fine as a rookie right away, which is kind of what we expected from him. Like he was definitely pro ready, and he was going into a solid situation in Minnesota. And then Justin Jefferson goes down with an injury, and he's expected to kind of be the guy, and he has delivered on that for the most part. He had that huge game against San Francisco. The peripherals for him have not been incredible. You're in a passing offense that's like second in attempts per game. You're going to look pretty good, but he hasn't actually been like dominant volume earner. Like he's not Puka Nacua. If you put him next to Puka Nacua, all the stats are just absolutely dwarfed in terms of earning volume. He's at 19% targets per out run for the season, 16% target share. But if you look at the more recent sample, as he's kind of taken over a larger role, that has risen. He's at a 20% target share over the last 4 weeks. So, I mean, in terms of as a rookie, doing very impressive things. Obviously, finding the end zone a lot, which certainly helps the fantasy production. It helps your perception in the dynasty market. But where do you think Addison fits in, first of all, into this rookie class? Let's start there because that's interesting. In terms of all the wide receivers in this class, where would you rank him right now?
Pre-draft or pre-season, I was sort of lined up with what seems to be kind of like the DFF consensus, which was that Addison would probably be the rookie wide receiver 1 after this year, just based on situation and draft capital and stuff like that, compared to the other guys in his tier, which was pretty much just all the first round guys before the season started. Obviously, Puka is the rookie wide receiver 1. I don't think I need to harp on that too much. I think that your last couple of guests have done an excellent job painting the picture of Puka as arguably the dynasty wide receiver 3, which is a take that I could totally see myself getting behind. Puka might be genuinely the best target earner in the NFL right now, as at least he has this season. I think that's not a crazy thing to say. So I'd put Puka as my wide receiver 1. I would probably have Addison at 2 as far as like what I'd trade for them today. And like Zay at 3, JSN at 4, most likely.
Do you have those 3 guys pretty close together?
Yes, definitely. Those second 3 are pretty much in one tier. I think I have them. I have Addison as like my wide receiver 16, and JSN is like my wide receiver 18, and Zay is my 14 or something like that. Like they're all pretty much in a row. And then Puka's up in like the 3 to 8 range. As far as Addison goes and like what I'm doing with him, though, I have sold him. I had a solid exposure before the breakout games, and then I got a couple nice offers that came in. I sold him and Anthony Richardson for a Josh Allen share, which I don't have, and it was on a contender, so it was like perfect.
Love it.
I think that he's at a spot very similar to the Waddle, Higgins, Devontae Smith that we've seen over the last 2 seasons before this year, where I feel like if you had sold Devontae Smith last year, or if you had sold Jalen Waddle last year at like their wide receiver 6, wide receiver 5 value, you'd be pretty happy with the return you got today, depending on what you got, obviously. But at that cost, I think that was the right move. So that's what I've been trying to do now here with Addison.
I think
my camera just shut off.
It did. I think that's a sharp call. I love the idea of using Addison in like an upgrade situation like you did for Josh Allen. I traded him in one of my leagues where I'm kind of trying to push for a buy. I traded him and a second for him and a second and something else, I think small, for Travis Kelce in a third.
I love that.
Because I was rolling out Goddard every week and like it was fine. But I was trying to make some kind of move that would push me over the top. And I think that could do the trick. With Addison, it's like one of those things, like Devonta Smith or T. Higgins or whatever. I don't think that he's ever going to be like a league winner. He's What he is a guy we know is good at football, who's going to be around for a long time and probably provide a lot of high end wide receiver 2 type of seasons. And that's fine. Like that's a great thing to have on your team, but it's also the perfect kind of asset to use when you're trying to get something that can actually win you the league. Like
Yeah.
you should be willing to give up those future seasons because it's the kind of thing that you can either piece together if you have to. Like you could go buy Keenan Allen for a second this offseason, or you could go buy like Hollywood Brown or whatever every single season. It feels like you can just buy him for, less than he's worth. And you can just piece that together. So it's kind of like a luxury asset at that point. Like once Addison's dynasty value creeps into the top 3 rounds of startups, he's just kind of a luxury pick at that point. And something that's fun to have, but not something you necessarily need to have
Yeah. Exactly.
on your team. And I feel kind of like you do. Him and Zay Flowers are super close. And then JSN's really hard for me because I obviously had him high pre-draft, like most people did. And he just hasn't done like hardly anything. Like even the last couple of games, his peripherals aren't even that good.
He's only
So I don't know.
slightly like been disappointing my expectations though. I wasn't expecting much from him this year. Like as long as Lockett and Metcalf are both there, I don't think that his role is ever going to be big enough. But
it's not a routes thing for me though. But like, didn't you think that he would be better? Like, didn't you think his targets per route run and his yards per route run would be like impressive? Like that he would get limited opportunity, but like they're not even good. Like forget impressive. Like they're literally not even good. That's the thing.
Yeah.
He's getting limited routes. Sure, I expected that, but I thought he was going to pop. Like I thought he was gonna be like, oh man, like we got to get this guy on the field more. Not he's just bad. I don't know, but he's been better the last couple of weeks after the bye week. I think he'll ultimately be fine. He's one of those prospects where he's a good enough prospect. You got to give him a little time before you just abandon ship because there is still upside there. But I would rather have Addison and Zay just by a hair.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. For me as well. But I do think that the Seattle passing offense as a whole has sort of regressed from where they were last year. And I'm hoping that improves over the rest of the season. I can't confidently say that it will, but I think a lot of it has to do with the offensive line play, which just hasn't been as good. Their bookend tackles are great, but Abe Lucas has been banged up and the interior is really not that great. So I think that I'm hoping that there's a little bit of a turnaround for all of them.
Yeah, I hope so. That would be great. I have some Lockett as well, but yeah, for Addison, where would he fit in with a couple other wide receivers? I just love to get your take here. Would you rather have Addison right now or T. Higgins?
I have them ranked back to back. I literally think I moved Addison above Higgins today. But I could flip tomorrow. I think that the possibility of T being on another team next year is really what separates him, because that sort of gives him like a more wide receiver 1, like actual like difference maker on your team kind of ceiling. Whereas I don't think Addison has that ceiling. I think that his ceiling is what we're seeing right now, pretty much.
That makes sense. Yeah. I don't even know if it's like a super useful exercise to try to like nitpick between these guys because they're all super close. And honestly, the answer to which one you should want on your team is which one costs you the least to acquire. So
there you go.
It's going to depend on your league. And
which I think is key right now, honestly.
It probably is. And I guarantee you, like if you go into 8 different leagues, you'll see this tier of wide receivers, in 8 different orders in terms of like how they're valued amongst the managers that have them. Before this season, Brandon Ayuk was way down at the bottom. Now he's like at the top of that group. It's a mess. It's just they get shuffled around every season. So I don't really try to play musical chairs with it, but it can be fun to talk about.
Yeah.
So let's jump ahead here. Then we're done with the breakouts. They're lots of fun. What's not as fun is rostering some of these players that we're going to talk about. These are the scariest assets to own in Dynasty. They're scary for different reasons, for sure. But ultimately, we just want to talk a little bit about what to do if you have these players. And I guess try to make our best guess of like what's going to happen with them. But I'm going to start because I think that I picked out the number 1 scariest asset to own in Dynasty. When you think about why would it be scary to own an asset? Well, all Dynasty assets have a certain amount of value. The last thing you want is for that asset to lose its value. an asset losing its value is honestly worse than it like not scoring points, because even if an asset's not scoring points for you, like a Kyler Murray, he's on injured reserve, you still have the ability to trade them for something that can score points for you. But when a player just loses their value, they just tank to zero, they're gone. That's it. Like you can't do anything except just think about what could have been if you traded them a little bit sooner. And so for me, that's Deshaun Watson. He's a guy who's going in the first round of startups, late first of startups this offseason. He's already definitely taken a huge hit, but he's still pretty valuable. I haven't looked at recent trades with him, but just my general feel across my leagues is, people aren't just ready to part with him for nothing. So he still holds a decent amount of value, but it's value that's really hard to kind of realize because he's a very toxic asset right now for the health reasons, the off the field reasons. He's a difficult asset to actually move. He's not a player you can put in your lineup. So it's just like makes me queasy to look at any dynasty rosters where I have him, because it's like I'm holding such a large chunk of my team's value in this piece that's like a ticking time bomb.
Yeah. I only had one share actually, and it was in one of our DFF leagues, one of the DFF Devi leagues. And I jumped ship, I think 2 weeks ago it was now, for what you can essentially think of as like 2 random 2026 firsts. I was like, I'm scared. My team is underperforming. I don't have the ability to just like hold this guy scoring 0 points on my bench and depreciating every week. So I'm just going to take whatever I'll get. I felt like that was a pretty solid return, all things considered. But there's really no guarantee. Those, especially in Devi, those guys could literally amount to a zero sum if something goes wrong. There's a long time before I actually am able to tangibly move those assets as like real value. But it's not as scary as rostering Deshaun Watson right now. I'll tell you that. Like you said, there's nothing scarier about an asset that you feel like is constantly depreciating in value. And while we were just chatting about this before we hopped on the show about how I do think that him not playing right now is probably the best thing for him, because if he is going to come back and he is playing on a bum shoulder, it's just going to ruin everything. Like that would be an absolute disaster. If he comes back and he's playing with a bad shoulder and he is severely underperforming, even more than he already was underperforming while healthy, it would just be like curtains for him. Even with all that guaranteed money, there's just no way you could justify continuing to roll him out if he, there's just too much pressure on him to perform at the moment, I think. So it's rat poison. I'm staying as far away. I'm staying as far away from it as I can. I'm glad I got out, and happy Halloween. Like you said, it's terrifying.
Right. I don't think I have the stomach to go out and like try to acquire more of him, but I do think at his current perception, he's almost untradeable for me. Like I don't know. I don't think that I could justify trading him away for like a single first, but I also wouldn't buy him for a first. So I don't know. Maybe I would. Maybe I hate myself enough to do that. I'm not sure. But in a couple leagues where I have him, like I've sent out offers and nothing that I think is fair has even been remotely entertained by the people I've sent it to. And it's going to vary by league, but he is such a toxic asset that I don't think you even need to waste a lot of mental energy thinking about how to trade him, because I don't know if it's even possible. For like reasonable prices. Like you could probably trade him for Sam Howell or something stupid like that, but I don't think that you should. I would trade him. Like these are the situations where I would trade him away. I would trade him away if you could get a top 4 first in this class, but I don't think that you can. I would trade him away for like 2 random firsts, like you did. I wouldn't trade him away for 2 late firsts, I don't think. I would trade him away if there's a team in your league that like is horribly managed and you can tell that they're just going downhill fast. Like I would try to get like their 2025 first plus something, but at the same rate, those teams are the ones that are perpetually trying to compete this year, and they're not going to buy Deshaun Watson because that doesn't help them compete.
They're probably too reactionary.
There's just like, they're also going to be reactionary and not want to buy him. So I don't have a lot of good advice. I have him on a couple teams that are tanking, and I've been sitting on him, and it works out because he's not scoring any points, and hopefully he'll come back and rebound and have some good games. But it's rough out there. It's rough out there, man. I ended up trading a pick that I think became Jahmyr Gibbs this offseason for Deshaun Watson, and that feels sad. And
that's heartbreaking, man. I can't even lie.
Yeah, it is pretty heartbreaking. Anyway, scary to own him.
Anyway.
I wouldn't recommend the experience. 0 out of 10 rostering Deshaun Watson. Don't try it at home, kids. Who's your first guy, Ben?
I put down Justin Fields as my first guy, who I think is sort of like a hold, wait, and pray at this point. I think that Tyson Bagent being as aggressively mid as he was in his 2 or 3 starts definitely was a good sign that Justin isn't like the main culprit of how bad the Chicago offense has looked as a whole this year, over the past 3 years. It might not all be on him. I think that Luke Getsy is a total fraud, and I'm just waiting on the day that he's gone. Like it's terrible.
That's a little bit of that's some serious cope right there. Well, the undrafted free agent quarterback wasn't good, so clearly it's the system.
The undrafted quarterback wasn't good, so pretty much exactly. So this is why he is on the scary part to own list, because the Carolina Panthers seem hell-bent on dropping Caleb Williams right in their lap. The Chicago Bears don't seem to really have a problem with it. They're kind of losing their way into those sweepstakes themselves. And I think that the vision of Caleb and Marvin, both in Chicago, is just totally overtaking that city right now. I don't know what that would look like. It would probably be cool, but the Bears find a way to ruin pretty much anything. Yeah. So I don't know. Like I loved Justin Fields as a prospect, but you just can't deny that. You can't deny how, pardon my corniness here, but you can't deny how scary he is to own right now. I'm not like selling him. I don't have any shares, but I wouldn't be like selling him right now because I think that his market value right now is just too low compared to how big the ceiling is if he could ever reach what we thought his ceiling was. But he's the QB 13 and 49th overall asset on Keep Trade Cut right now. And then on Fantasy Calc, which is probably a little bit less reactionary, he's the QB 11 and the 28th overall asset. And that's, I don't know.
I think that's super fair. I would sell him at that price.
I'd sell him at that price, but at the market value of Keep Trade Cut, I just can't justify that as far as a reasonable return for what he could be if he actually is able to turn it around and they are actually set on adding Marvin to Justin Fields that offense and seeing what that might look like.
To digress for a second, could you imagine DJ Moore finally gets a real quarterback, Caleb Williams, and not 30 minutes later, the Bears are on the clock again with the 4th pick in the draft, and they select Marvin Harrison Jr.
That would be so funny.
The biggest troll in the world. And I haven't rostered any DJ Moore in a hot second.
That would be the smallest sell window in Dynasty football history.
The world's smallest sell window. Listen to me right now. If the Bears draft Caleb Williams and they have another pick, like 3 or 4 picks later, you now have 30 minutes to get more off your Dynasty teams. Like,
you have on the phone.
You are literally working with the same clock as the NFL draft. Like, you can watch the broadcast. There's a clock on the screen. That's how long you have.
Yes. As soon as you hear that chime, you know your time's up. That would be pretty crazy. But just to like wrap up my stance on Fields, he's looked solid. I don't think he even looked notably that good in the Redskins game or in the game before that, which I'm now blanking on who they played.
Broncos.
The Broncos. I don't think he looked like notably effective or like elite in any way, but he looked much better than he had. And that gives me a very small spark of hope. But in general, I'm terrified, and I'm not adding any shares. I'm scared.
You should be terrified. I have one left. I have 1 share left, and it's in an Empire League that if I win the league this year, the league resets and we redraft. So I'm like really crossing my fingers that I just win the league this year, so I don't have to face the consequences of my own actions.
I still think he
Justin.
will sort of like regress to like some level of the production he had last year, even if he doesn't play better. Sort of like how I was talking about with Howell earlier. Like he doesn't need to be a better NFL quarterback and like keep his job to produce fantasy points for us, because he was
That
bad
is
last year
true,
and he
but
was running enough to make it
I
work.
think the reason that I'm like trying to get out from him, or like hypothetically trying to get out from him, where I would have him is, I think that we know now that the ceiling isn't what we thought it was. Like I think we can pretty comfortably close the book on him being like Lamar Jackson, because he just isn't good. Like I don't think it. I mean, maybe he gets some miracle offensive coordinator and everything changes, but I think that I've seen enough at this point to say this guy isn't good. Now, I think it's perfectly possible that he's good enough to just hang around the NFL. Like Jimmy Garoppolo is still, well, not anymore, but he was starting games for a while. Daniel Jones got a contract. Like, I think he could totally be good enough to be that, but I don't think even in that scenario that he's likely to be a top 5 quarterback regularly. Like, I think you just have to have some passing acumen. He wasn't going to keep up the rushing pace from last year. Like that, there was regression coming on that. So I don't, even if you miss out, quote unquote, on Fields and he doesn't, get washed out of the league, I don't think that you're missing out on a perennial top 5 guy. I think you're missing out on like a perennial QB 10, QB 11 kind of guy. And I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with that if you can sell him for anything remotely like, top 30 dynasty asset prices. So that's what I'd probably try to do, and just get rid of that pit in my stomach.
Yeah.
All
I'm aligned
right.
with you on that for sure. If I could get that return, I'm getting out for sure.
Yeah. All right. Very cool. So, here's a question. Would you rather have would you still rather have Justin Fields than Jordan Addison?
No.
No, you'd rather
I'd
have
rather
Addison.
have Jordan Addison, I think. I think I'd rather have Addison because I think that he's a more valuable bargaining chip at this point.
Okay, fair enough.
Both of them are kind of in the sell range to me.
Close for me. All right, we're not going to spend as long on the rest of these guys, because I like asking the hard questions. I don't like answering them. I would take Fields. I think I would take Fields, but I wouldn't feel good about it. I would just try to turn Fields into something slightly sexier, but I don't know. I would definitely take Puka over Fields. That's easy for me. But
sure.
What about this next guy, DK Metcalf? Let's just go through your list, and then we'll see if we have time for mine. Your guys are better. You took all the good ones after I got Watson, and DK Metcalf, kind of a scary asset to own. Why don't you walk us through your thought process there?
I sort of just was thinking about my how I've been updating my rankings as the season's gone on, and I've just noticed he's continuing to fall further and further down my list of wide receivers. I just moved him below the Pittman, Marquise Brown, DJ Moore sort of tier, and he's kind of at the bottom of that group now. I think he's pretty close to a Deontay Johnson at this point. But he's the wide receiver 29 this year in points per game. He's about to cross over the age, or not cross over, but cross into the age apex. He's coming up on his 26th birthday, I believe, in the next couple months. And like I said earlier about JSN, the Seattle passing offense has sort of taken a step back. They were really good last year, and maybe they've sort of regressed back to what they should be, especially as far as Gino's performance. He was literally a top 8 quarterback as far as passing goes last year. And this year he's probably closer to what he actually is. And I think that Metcalf has suffered the most out of all of their pass catchers from that. And I think that his my optimism about his volume there is only going to get worse. And I just really the ceiling that used to be there. I just don't really see it anymore. And I'm pretty concerned about him.
Yeah. I mean, he has been bleeding value a little bit. DK Metcalf's kind of like the guy who peaked in high school. He, I mean, he had that big second season, and then he's just been living off of potential ever since. He's never really put it all together.
Name recognition and off-season workout screenshots, pretty much.
Yeah. Looks good with his shirt. Definitely hits the gym a lot, but still in his hometown. I don't. No, I don't know. It's a very loose analogy, but the point is that DK Metcalf has had like one actually legitimate fantasy season, and then the rest has just been hype. And a lot of the hype, I think, was warranted. Like he had good peripheral numbers in some of those other years where things kind of bounced poorly for him or whatever. It's kind of crazy to me that a guy that looks like that can't just catch 12 touchdowns every year. I don't know. I don't know why. I like coaching issue, I guess. But at this point, it's getting crowded. It just doesn't look like it's really going to happen. Like, I don't know. Maybe we get some kind of miracle fantasy league winning season when he's 29 and he's playing for Justin Herbert or something. I don't know. That could happen. But in the meantime, like you said, Deontay Johnson, like he's a wide receiver too, who just looks cool. Like that's what he is not actually a wide receiver one. He hasn't been a real wide receiver one in a while.
Yeah.
So if you're rostering him, I think he's a guy you can probably still get out on because he just carries a lot of brand equity in leagues. Like, I don't know. I don't know what you can get exactly, but like if you could get into I don't know.
I think you could pretty easily flip him into like a Marquise Brown, and I'd do that if I could.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't do that straight up, but I would do it for a plus. Like
a small plus, I'd be fine doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to handle him. You know, if you look at the range that he's kind of in, there's not even a lot of guys that I would just want straight up. Like it's kind of a lot of players that are sort of teetering. You know, he's in that Justin Fields kind of zone. He's in that like Devontae Adams zone, who I think is also kind of a scary player right now just because of the situation that he's in at his age. You know, Austin Eckler, like there's a lot of like guys that are sort of on the brink of something, and something could be disaster. Here's a question. Would you trade DK Metcalf today for Will Levis?
Ooh, whoa. Yeah, I think I would, man. I actually think I would.
All right.
That's crazy
there's
to
something,
think about, but
there's something that could actually happen. You could do that. You could
if you're in a league with Ben. I don't have any DK Metcalf and stuff.
I haven't rostered DK Metcalf in years.
Yeah. That's the thing is like I used to be a big like DK Dynasty wide receiver 2 guy when I was first getting into this stuff, and you know, it's a bit of gut analytics other than the good peripherals that we've seen here and there and the one good season. But like you said, I just like it's not happening right now, and I just don't have a lot of confidence that it's going to. So rather take a guy like Deontay who's getting targets and getting catches.
For what it's worth, I would also take Levis. So crazy how the world works, huh?
Good to know. Yeah.
This is a very,
life
very
comes
silly
at you
game.
fast. It is.
In Dynasty, life really just comes at you so fast. It's crazy. But it also it's so weird how like things can come at you so fast, but then DK Metcalf can have one good season 4 years ago and like barely lose Dynasty value. Like I don't it's weird. Like once you do something once, there's a lot of staying power with that.
It depends on the thing, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right. Jameson Williams is your next guy. I mean, I don't think anybody would disagree with you that he's a scary guy to have. Actually, so I will push back to a degree because he's already lost like most of his dynasty value. So it's like, I don't know, like at this point, you've already like ridden the roller coaster most of the way down the hill. At this point, like if you've held on this long, you're clearly braver than most. So I don't know how much scarier it can really get because he's already kind of valued at the point where if he became nothing, you'd be fine.
Yeah.
Which is that's my only pushback.
No, but, I can get behind that.
But sure. I totally get the crux of like the general argument. So I still want to talk about him. What are you thinking with Jameson Williams?
So I'm I'm a very unfortunate JMO bag holder. I sort of stumbled into like 58% rostership this offseason, which is disgusting. But it was literally like, it was genuinely on accident. It was like, I think 2 or 3 orphans and then like one like weird startup that we did where we like auto picked the entire startup and then everybody got randomly assigned a team. It was a cool league. That's with Reese actually in DFF. It was his idea. It's like a low buy-in kind of deal, but it's been a fun experiment. Anyways, I think that what we've seen from JMO so far in his 3 games of action is that the route running looks fine. The speed looks elite. That's what it was always going to be. he literally just doesn't know how to catch a football. Like there's no other way to put it. He like even the touchdown that he caught, he probably could have tracked that better because he went like this way and then this way like twice. And it's just like the mechanics look like they're a total mess. Like he does not look well coached. He does not look refined in any way. He looks like a college prospect still, and we just don't have time for that at this point. Like we can't like develop him for 3 years. Like he's about to enter he's in the middle of his second season, and he hasn't produced anything, and he doesn't look like he's going to produce anything for the rest of the year. And I'm just really sad. And like you said, it's hard to be scared anymore because like I knew what I was getting myself into, and I felt the fear. And now I'm just like left with this like despair,
empty feeling inside.
And this, just like a void of, I don't know. It's just been like, it's been a tough watch. The drop he had on Monday against the Raiders, I don't know if you saw that. It was on like a motion and then a 10-yard out. And he literally had it right here. And then just like, it just bounced off his chest. It was like the most simple, like routes on air catch ever. And he just doesn't have it, man. He like
brutal.
I don't even know what to say at this point. The route running is good too. Like he has great stop-start ability, and he's able to create separation. He gets open, and he's been earning targets to a degree relative to his snap share. He just doesn't catch them. So,
well, definitely more of a trick than a treat with Jameson Williams.
Absolutely.
But I mean, hands are one of those things that's like pretty fixable. Maybe eventually there's something there, but I think the trick with him, or the move with him, is try to turn him into something that's scoring points for you, because I don't think you're going to miss out. Like, look at this offense now. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, and Jahmyr Gibbs are all top 5 assets at their position in Dynasty. Where's even the room for Jameson Williams to have a sizable role? Like, even if he does turn out to be a quality player, I mean, what are you really going to miss out on? Like, I don't think he's going to usurp any of those guys. So you're looking at like 4th in the pecking order in this offense. Like, I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze at this point with Jameson Williams. So just bail. Like, if you could turn him into Rashee Rice right now, like that would be like an absolute miracle. I would
I'd probably do that.
Smash
too.
that. I would trade him for Josh Downs. I would trade him for Tank Dell. I literally don't care. Like, just get him out of place.
No, it's really rough. Like you said, the like best case scenario is that he becomes like the most efficient player in the entire NFL and averages like 40 yards a catch and just catches like 2 deep shots a game or something.
Well, then it'll just be Rashid Shaheed, and you don't even want to start him.
No,
so.
he's like a Rashid Shaheed, like Martavis Bryant, like Darius Hayward-Bay. That's what we have here. And it's
unfortunate. All right, we're gonna close out this segment with the Green Bay Packers
all of them, dude.
Yeah, all of them. All of them. Well, I like Luke Musgrave. I'll take Luke Musgrave. I'm not scared. But the rest of them, I mean, they're all pretty scary. I mean, rostering Romeo Doubs is scary because he's not good at football.
You know I like Romeo Doubs too.
Factory tour stray of the week.
That's why you said that. There it is. I'll add it to my list.
Yeah. No, I mean, the real problem here is Jordan Love. Obviously, he is. He is the definition of not it. He ran hot on touchdowns for a few weeks, and all the haters and the losers were like, "Look, Jordan Love, he's the next Hall of Fame quarterback for the Green Bay Packers." And newsflash, he is not. He's been near the top of the league in turnover worthy throw rate. His completion percentage over expectation has been absolute garbage. He just lost to the Broncos, or like barely beat the Broncos. I don't know. Those are basically the same thing. It was not pretty.
They lost.
They did lose. Okay.
Yep.
So so did the Chiefs. So what do we really know? But
Denver's weird. They're an enigma.
It's bad. I mean, Jordan Love has just been really bad. So it is scary. We don't know what the future of this franchise really is. They're not going to be in position to snag themselves a quality quarterback. They might just run it back with Jordan Love. And as we've seen, that's not really going to produce the best results for these weapons.
Yeah, I can't lie. You totally took me to school on this one. I think that like one of the first Factory Tour episodes ever, I think, involved some Jordan Love hate, which is now with the benefit of hindsight, absolutely warranted. And I remember watching that and thinking to myself, I had just traded for Jordan Love in one of my leagues. I was like, this guy's not right about him. No way. There's no shot. The tape, I thought I saw flashes on the tape. I guess I was wrong. Totally whiffed on him. I was much higher on him than you. I actually don't have any shares, which is pretty sweet, even though I was kind of a defender for a bit there. But yeah, he just hasn't looked any bit of the part that I thought he could be. I thought that he was going to be much more precise and much more accurate. And instead he's been like airmailing half of his throws and throwing really dumb boneheaded picks that he just shouldn't be attempting. I was expecting a like mature and like poised version of him to come out, but he looks like he is fresh out of Utah State. Like it literally looks like he didn't develop at all for those 4 years. So it looks like he learned how to do a nice play fake from Aaron Rodgers, and he changed his release a little bit. So he kind of just like flicks it and like his arm is cool or whatever. But I don't know. I don't know. I'm out on Love. I'm out on Watson. I'm out on Aaron Jones, I guess, to a degree. And Dobbs obviously is falling into the void of nothingness, and Musgrave is pretty much all you can salvage from the Green Bay Packers offense, I'd say, at this point.
Yeah, I mean, hating on Jordan Love is a time-honored tradition on the Factory Tour, but I don't want to victory lap like too hard, because it's not like it's different than guys who come out. Well, guys come out and they're like, Jordan Love's never, like somebody like, not specifically Jordan Love, but just in general with player takes, like player X is never going to make it in the NFL. Like they don't have the juice. And like, that's really not what I said. Like, I don't even like talking about players like that. For me, it was always a range of outcomes thing. I didn't think the price was efficient for what I thought his likely range of outcomes was. And if you made me, pick a side, like what's going to happen, I would have said he'd be bad, but it would have been like a 60-40 thing, and that's just where it's going right now. He doesn't look like he has it. I don't really see him as anything different than like a Desmond Ridder type. I think it could very easily, if they didn't have Sean Clifford as his backup and they had Taylor Heineke, like I could see them pulling the parachute and just going with the safe veteran. But they're probably just going to let him play out the rest of the year because they don't really have other things going on there. And that's fine, but it's going to be a really gross offense. You're probably not going to want to start just about anybody in it. Christian Watson for me would be the biggest hit, except that I ended up like shipping off a bunch of my shares. I only have him in like one league at this point, and it's a best ball league, so I don't even really care that much. So it's fine. It's fine for me, but it is scary to have those guys. I think Watson is probably not quite the player that I thought he could be coming into the season. Like I think he's still good, but he's definitely more of like not a role player. That's not the right word, but a guy who does some things well. Whoa. That's a little aggressive. Our Marquez Valdes-Scantling is like literally the worst wide receiver in the NFL. He's not that bad, but he's a guy. He has certain skills. He's never going to be like an all around elite volume earner. So it's a little bit rough.
Yeah, his mechanics at the catch point are such a mess. Like they're so bad.
Gotcha.
So, go ahead.
That I wasn't super aware of, but
it's terrible.
Yeah, but the volume earnings like not too terrible. Definitely not a guy you'd be happy if you drafted him in the 4th round of a startup this offseason. I could definitely feel that, but pretty scary. I don't know what you do with these guys, to be honest with you. You could sell Romeo Dobbs for a second, probably. I would do that. You could sell Jaden Reed for like a second, or you could just hold him and hope things get better. He's still young. He's going to hold value. Jordan Love.
I kind of like what we've seen from Reed, actually, to tack on to that really like very quickly.
I mean, I think he looks cool. Like he definitely looks fine. Not somebody I think is like a guaranteed, future breakout star, but like he's done enough as a rookie to hold some value. He'll probably be worth a second for the whole offseason. So you certainly don't need to sell him for a second now. Like you can still do that later if you want to. Love, I would take. I mean, if you can get it, and if you can get any first for Jordan Love at this point, if it's 2026 first, take it and run. An early second would be fine with me.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're like, I need the points, I need a quarterback. Okay, his points, like you could just put like a wide receiver in the super flex, and you're probably going to be fine most weeks. Like That's a
Yeah.
little bit. I think that is something that's overrated in Dynasty, where it's like, I need the points, like I need this guy. If you actually look at the replacement level, it's not worth holding on, for what you could get. Like I'm in a league where I'm like fighting hard for a playoff spot. I have Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray, and obviously Kyler's not back yet. We haven't seen him play at all. My only other quarterback is Jared Goff, who I've been starting all year. Somebody offered me a 2025 first for him, and I was like, cool, have him, take him. I don't care. Like I don't, I'll figure it out. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. I'm gonna take the value.
Yes.
And like I have an offer out right now for Baker Mayfield. It'll probably get accepted for
Yeah.
like a third of the price that I just sold Goff for, and that's fine. Like it's gonna be fine. You could go buy Josh Dobbs. You could go buy who's gonna start for the Vikings the rest of the year. You could go buy Taylor Heineke for like a 4th-round pick. Go buy Gardner Minshew. Like you don't need to turn down a trade because you're trying to contend and you have Jordan Love.
Yeah, add the value and figure out the rest later, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. So those are some scary assets to own. I hope that we did not traumatize anybody. I'm a little shell shocked, but we're gonna close this thing out with I guess like a pretty quick segment. We're just gonna kind of ponder the question whether these players are going to come back from the dead, return to fantasy prominence, or if they're going to kind of stay buried where they are, continue on a downward path. And we're going to start this thing out with Dameon Pierce, who by week 2 of the NFL preseason, I was convinced was going to be an every down workhorse. And now by week 8, he is splitting snaps with Devin Singletary. And I can't really wrap my head around it, but that's the reality of the situation. So what does the future hold for Mr. Dameon Pierce?
To tell you the truth, I'm not really fully sure, but what I've seen is that he's looked very underwhelming on tape. There's not a lot of juice, there's not a lot of burst, and there's not very great vision as far as like what I think his biggest flaws are. Obviously the power and the toughness is still there. That's sort of what he's made his money on as an NFL player. But I don't know. There's just like, I haven't seen anything that really separates him from pretty much any running back in the league besides his toughness. And NFL teams are looking for more than that out of an every down back. So with his efficiency as bad as it's been, he's had 0 games over 4 yards per carry this year, and the snap percentage generally trending down. He missed practice today for what it's worth. It looks like he might not play this week. The volume was there earlier in the year. He had a couple 20 carry games, but I just, like you said, I just don't think he's the workhorse that a lot of people cut him out to be this offseason. And I definitely see that ship sinking more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I think the offensive line is definitely an issue there, but
yeah, absolutely.
The thing about day 3 running backs is like, it doesn't have to, it's not always fair, but this is how it goes. Like everything has to break right for you to really get that shot. And if you do get that shot and it doesn't work out and you lose it, like you're just not getting it again. I think Dameon Pierce is a fine player. He's probably going to be in the league for years, but he's going to be in the league for years like the way Gus Edwards has been in the league for years. Like I don't think he's ever really going to get that chance to be a lead back unless he's on a team where, the starter gets injured or something and he finds himself getting volume. So I'm going to say in general, like he's probably going to stay buried. And he's going to become one of those depth guys on your roster, one of those guys that's like a handcuff or a guy that you stash for injury upside, a guy you can have in best ball and hope he scores a touchdown or something. But I don't think he's likely to find himself in another spot to really dominate touches and dominate snaps.
Yeah, I'm fully with you on that for sure. I wouldn't move anything of tangible value to acquire Dameon Pierce. I don't think this is a buy low situation. I think that this is a flame out happening before our eyes if I had to gun to my head.
Yeah. So, bummer.
Stay buried.
Bummer. Stay buried.
Sorry, Dameon.
This next one hurts me personally a lot more because this was my most or second most drafted player on Underdog this season. Rashad Bateman is just absolutely plunging a knife into my heart each and every week with his mediocrity. I don't know. I can't figure this man out. Like he was such a good college prospect. He flashed the fancy efficiency stats last year. We thought, Todd Monken's going to unleash this guy. And I don't know. I'm kind of over it at this point. but I don't really know what to think about him. Maybe there's still something lingering from his injury last year. Maybe he's just not that good. Maybe Lamar Jackson doesn't like him. I don't know. I can't read the tea leaves on this one. Ben, what's the deal with Rashad Bateman?
I also am very stung by Rashad Bateman's placement on this list. Not stunned, stung. I hope my sickness is not like inhibiting my words too much there. But I actually think that I'm probably more optimistic about him right now than you are. It sounds like you have fully accepted and are just mourning the loss of this sweet prince of ours. But I was also really high on him as a college prospect, and I'm not quite ready to give up on him just yet. His snap percentage has gone up every week over the past 4 weeks, which is cool. He seems to be overtaking Aguilar, who looked to have taken his job towards the beginning of the season. So hopefully there's something going on there. And it's never been like the route running for him or the explosiveness, but those did seem to take a hit early on in the year. He wasn't creating a lot of separation, but over the last like 2-3 weeks, he seems to be improving in that regard a lot. His speed looks like it's returning to a degree. I do think that the injury had been nagging him early in the year. I know that he had a setback in preseason that had made him like questionable for week 1.
Right.
But he looks to be at full speed again. He had a couple nice plays in that masterclass against Detroit early in the game. And then, game script kind of took the passing offense out of it to a degree. Also, Mark Andrews and Zay Flowers are insane and hog all the targets over there. But I think that with Odell sort of underwhelming, the door is kind of open. If he's able to prove himself and get more consistent as a catcher, I think that with his explosiveness and speed kind of returning and his ability to separate kind of returning, I do still think that there is a world where he is able to emerge as their wide receiver 2 going forward, which is their third target in the offense, but still like a role of substance to a degree.
I love a lot of what you're saying. It's really hard to start the bull case for a wide receiver with the phrase he's starting to overtake Nelson Aguilar. But you did it well. I mean, you did it well. I was pretty convinced by the end. And when I heard that phrase, like I didn't think there was any hope, but I don't know. I mean, you're kind of selling me a little bit. I had almost forgotten that he had that little setback in the preseason where he wasn't actually 100%. So there's a little ray of hope there that like he's getting back up to full speed. This is another one of those situations where I think we need to recalibrate our expectations. Like there's almost no shot he's ever going to be what we thought that he could be coming into the league. But the idea that he could be like Gabe Davis level relevant is like definitely still possible. So, keep a candle lit. Maybe you'll see his, one arm reach out of the grave and catch a touchdown and then pull the rest of him back up. But I mean, I would buy low on him, like for the right price,
it's got to be like super low, but
I don't think anybody's going to trade him to you for a third because like, what's the point? But a couple third round picks or like,
I could see someone being open to just like getting to reset on like a shot on like a Gabe Davis kind of guy with a third round pick. I could see that getting accepted.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. It never hurts to try to send out those types of offers, but
he's pretty in the trenches right now as far as value goes. So
yeah, I wouldn't feel the need to like send out a second round pick for him or like even a late second round pick. There's just no point. But he's the kind of guy where when I have pieces on my team that I don't believe in and I'm trying to ship them off, sell high on like a running back, like try to sell Zach Moss or something, like, I don't know, give me Rashad Bateman back. Like you can get stuff like that done if you're creative and you stack enough of those decent bets on your bench. Some of them are going to hit. Just, maybe it's him, maybe it's someone else. I threw a couple quarterbacks on here late just due to the news that they had both been sent to the bench. So Desmond Ridder and Jimmy Garoppolo are both now buried 6 feet under, replaced by Taylor Heineke and Aiden O'Connell. So
my boy, AOC 2024. Let's go. Let's ride.
It's much more binary. Yeah. We'll see. I don't know if that's I don't know how long that's gonna last, but
you shouldn't have mentioned Aiden O'Connell. I get so excited whenever I hear Aiden O'Connell's name.
I understand that you are absolutely desperate for any semblance of hope for the Raiders. I mean, the good news is for you, it's like if he's bad, you just lose a bunch of games, which is like what you should probably want anyway. And if he's good,
Yeah.
then cool. That's like found money. So it's like
Yeah.
now you're kind of in a win-win situation now. But yeah, anyway, Ritter and Garoppolo, it's more binary at the quarterback position. It's really more a matter of like, will they ever start again on purpose in the
Yeah.
NFL or not? So let's start with Ritter. What do you think? Like, is this it? Like, is this curtains for him? He's only in his second season, but didn't really have much pedigree to begin with. Do you think
Yeah.
we see Ritter really as a team's intentional starter again in the NFL?
I'm kind of going to group these two together in my little analysis here as sort of a dichotomy of each other.
Yeah.
I think that there's a very off chance that Ritter gets like a Josh Dobbs chance to start again on like a team that's like, we just lost our starting quarterback, but we have a good team. Fuck it. Let's take Desmond Ritter on and see if he can, give us something. So
Yeah.
in that sense, intentional starter, but kind of like in the vein of what a backup quarterback is. So I don't know if you could call that like coming back from the dead. Jimmy, I think, is just going to be a career backup after this. Like, I think that like, given his age, given what he's done, every time he's been in any kind of adverse situation that isn't like literally the greatest roster in the league, it's just like, there's never been, I've never watched a game and been like, wow, Jimmy Garoppolo just went out there and he won his team that game. And I'm not saying that you have to do that to be like a starter in the NFL, but like, if you aren't able to do that, no one's going to be excited about you. Like, no one's going to be out there like offering you a contract. No one's going to be out there, unless they're Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels. No one's going to be out there offering you a contract. No one's going to be out there trading like a big sum of money or a big sum of value to get you. It's just like, it's just ugly. It's just really ugly. And that's not something that Jimmy's known for, but it's what he is now.
Do you think he would have been out of the league like 5 years ago if he wasn't so handsome?
I think there's a solid chance. I think that quarterback face might be a thing. Like, I think that, I don't know if anyone gets that Colin Cowherd reference, but I think that like there might be something to that,
It's possible. It is absolutely possible.
Absolutely not.
We know if Desmond Ritter makes it in the league, he'll have earned that.
Ritter, as far as Ritter goes, I think that there's a chance that he got benched because he's concussed, which is like, okay, maybe they're going to roll with him after this week. But I think that he looked so bad in those 7 weeks that we did see him that if he gets another shot, I just wouldn't want anything to do with it anyways. So
yeah, I mean, it would be a short leash. For what it's worth, he was cleared from the concussion protocol.
Okay.
He was cleared to go back into that game, and he didn't. Arthur Smith is just like, he likes to be coy because he's like just kind of an a-hole and doesn't
really is, man.
Deserve nice things. But
I don't even think he's a bad coach. I just think he's a bad person, I guess, at this point.
I think he's both. He draws up some interesting plays, but like just his use of personnel alone is like enough for him to be a bad coach. Sure. Is literally running a 2-minute drill, and I saw like I had to pause my TV because I was looking at the huddle, and none of Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, or Drake London were on the field. It was literally like Michael Pruitt, Jonnu Smith, Mac Hollins, Kadarrell Hodge, and Cordero Patterson.
Wasn't that the double pass that Jonnu threw to Pruitt in the red zone?
It really might have been.
I think I remember
probably
that.
Multiple snaps.
It's probably like a whole package that they have. Yeah,
that's got to be like the worst personnel package in the NFL, and you have 3 top 10 picks sitting on the bench. Like, it's just bizarre.
Yeah.
But that's been beaten to death. I don't think Desmond Ritter will ever be an intentional week 1 starter for an NFL team again. I think it's very possible that he hangs around the league and does play some games. But like you're talking about Josh Dobbs, Gardner Minshew type of value at this point. So, if you can still get out of him for a second or something, like I would do that for sure. Maybe he'll get a chance to start again and that sell window opens, but it doesn't look great. Yeah. Last couple names here. We have another appearance from Greg Dulcich. I needed a little bit of hope on this list. So I went ahead and threw him on there. I am firmly in the camp that he is coming back from the dead. He has been hurt all season. He's been on a bad offense, which doesn't even matter because he played like 1.5 quarters of football this year. But he's locked in a bad offense right now, and he's dealing with hamstring injuries. He's still a young guy, like second-year tight end, whatever. There's plenty of time out ahead for him. I still believe in what we saw from him as a rookie. There's nothing about him having a hamstring injury that makes him like a worse
Less
prospect or
valuable.
worse
Yeah.
breakout bet than he was. Like I'm totally ready to get hurt again next year and draft him.
Yeah.
I think he'll be back. I think eventually he's going to break out and show us something.
I'm rocking with you on that. I think that he's easily the most talented tight end they have, and I guess that's another like, oh, he beat out Nelson Aguilar kind of thing.
Right.
But he beat out. He's very clearly better than Adam Troutman. Adam Troutman didn't do anything when Dulcich went down. So I don't know. You can't expect the Broncos to just like never use a tight end. Like they have a guy. He was good when he was a rookie, and he got hurt. That's it. There's no reason for us to panic too hard yet. It's like we said earlier, it sucks having an asset that's losing in value, and it sucks having an asset that's not giving you points. But at least the one that's not giving you points might not be losing you value. So
honestly, with all these tight ends breaking out and stuff, like now might be the best time to just put out a little cheap offer for Greg Dulcich because he's like such a forgotten man at this point in the landscape. And honestly, if I was tanking, like maybe I'm a madman, but if I was tanking and like I don't need to start a tight end, I would just trade Trey McBride for Greg Dulcich in a second, and I would be totally cool with that.
On my one Caleb team, I have him sitting in my tight end slot right now because I don't want to score points.
There you go. That's the best place to have him. Yeah, I mean, if you're tanking, you have no excuse. Like go trade for Greg Dulcich right now.
Literally, it's not going to cost you anything at this point.
Last two members of the Tennessee Titans, Treylon Burks and Chigakonkwo. Lots of breakout buzz for these two bozos this offseason. And man, has that not gone so well. Will Levis throws 4 touchdown passes in his first game as a pro. Treylon Burks, 0 receptions. Yikes. So what's the deal? You know, you're the tape guy. Is Treylon Burks like anything?
Treylon Burks, in a very similar vein to Jameson Williams, looks very unrefined and just looks like he is not well coached. Doesn't look like he has, been refining the more nuanced aspects of playing the receiver position. It looks like he kind of just expects that he's going to go out there and out athleticism guys at the NFL level, which is just something you can't do. So what that means is that he's struggled to separate and he's struggled to catch anything. So I'm pretty low on Burks. I don't have any exposure, and I'm happy about that. And then as far as Chig goes, he seemed to be fine in the Levis game. I think he had a couple catches, if I'm remembering correctly. I haven't checked the box score on him, and I wasn't watching that whole game, so I can't say exactly what he did. But there's a fairly good anecdotal track record of rookie quarterbacks relying on tight ends as a safety blanket. They don't have a lot of receiving weapons outside of DeAndre Hopkins there. And I think that there's a world where Chig could establish himself as something. He's not someone I'd be going out and buying, but if you own Chig shares and you have a lot of investment in him, I'd feel okay and like decently optimistic. Definitely feel better about him than I did a week ago.
Yeah, he had 4 catches, 23 yards in that game. So, I mean, he was involved in the game plan. Like they schemed up a couple touches for him. I don't know. He's fine. Like he'll be around and he'll probably have some relevant games. I don't think that we're ever going to see him become a guy where he's like someone you draft to be your tight end 1 at any point. But he's probably going to hang around as a guy that's, usable as your fill-in guy or whatever.
He'll be a solid depth piece. Maybe he can have like a David Njoku kind of career arc and like eventually have some form of like desperation TE1 relevancy, but not going to be someone you really want to rely on. It's more like if you see Chig in your tight end 1 slot, you'll be like, now might be a good time to go trade. Like he'll be like a Q almost.
Right. Unfortunately, I think he's on more of an Alberto kind of career arc, but
that would be heartbreaking.
Yeah.
What's up with Alberto? Where is Alberto right now?
He's on the Eagles. He's on the Eagles as an every week game day inactive. Yeah, we traded like nothing. I don't know, some conditional pick or something.
Dude, the fact that you knew the answer to that, I guess you're an Eagles fan. So
I am an Eagles fan. I was actually like, that's a cool move. Like he's got some like athleticism and he's like play. Like you could use him in like the Goddard role and like he could definitely do some stuff. But I don't know what their plan is with him. Like just stash him for now. But he's not active on game days. But I have him on a bunch of dynasty teams. So He just sits on my bench. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe he'll play someday. But Chigakonkwo kind of had that similar kind of like low routes, high efficiency sort of rookie season, and then
Yeah.
people were like, "Oh, he's going to get all the routes and he'll just keep being as efficient," and that didn't happen.
It's not how this game works, unfortunately.
Not quite. And he's also like undersized, and so it's tricky with him. I don't think he's just kind of a roster clogger right now. Because you're not going to really want to play him. Like I just dropped Juwan Johnson in a league finally. I could see him being that kind of a player. Like someone that you kind of hold on the potential, and then eventually you just sadly drop him to pick up Jaren Hall off of waivers. So it could be that kind of situation. But I think he's like vaguely live to become like a high end tight end too, maybe at some point.
Yeah.
That's very non-committal for me, but it's possible. I'll leave a candle lit
within the range of outcomes. We'll leave a candle lit.
Yeah.
If you have him, just keep him, I guess. But yeah, that's Chigakonkwo. What more can you say?
What more can you say? He's worth a roster spot in Dynasty.
He's worth a roster spot in Dynasty. I would not drop him yet.
Yeah.
Actionable analysis.
There we go. All right. Cool. Well, we made it to the end of our Dead or Alive segment. We made it through the scariest assets to own. We talked about some breakouts. I mean, we got through it all here. We made it to the end of our definitely on Halloween podcast that we're recording here. I hope you all got lots of candy, unless your name is Arthur Smith, and then I hate you, and I hope you didn't get anything except like a toothbrush when you were trick-or-treating. So that's us. That's the factory tour. Ben, thanks a lot for coming on. You got any final thoughts for us?
Go by Puka Nacua. Go by Jahmyr Gibbs if you can, and enjoy the rest of your fall. I'll see you guys probably sometime after Thanksgiving, and thanks for having me on again, Paul.
Absolutely. You'll be on again soon for sure. Hopefully healthy 100%, ready to go,
sure.
Ramping back up. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it. If you could sub to the YouTube channel or follow on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you can rate or like or comment or whatever it is that the platform you're listening allows you to do to support the show. It's very much appreciated. You can follow Ben on Twitter at BWinkNFL. Very underfollowed on Twitter. He really needs you guys to get out there and follow him. His tweets are entertaining. You've heard him on the show. Like he knows his stuff in terms of film. Super sharp. And you can follow me on Twitter at Paul_DFF. I tweet funny things sometimes, and less frequently I tweet things that are useful. But there I am on the formerly the Bird app. So thanks again, guys. We will see you next week on the Factory Tour.